What if I said to you, that's easier said than done? What if I said, you read my mind? Or if I told you, I dabble from time to time? Would you know what I mean? Would you know how to reply? Today you'll learn 75 common words, phrases, and expressions you can use every day. Welcome back to JForrest English. Of course, I'm Jennifer. Now let's get started. Number 1, easier said than done. Do you know this phrase? Native speakers, including myself, love using this. Easier said than done. This is used to say that something is more difficult to do than it sounds. So we commonly use this as a reply when someone gives you advice or a solution that sounds simple when they say it, but it's actually hard to carry out, which means it's hard to do. So let's say your friend wants to give you some advice and says, just tell your boss you don't want to work weekends. Well, that is easy to open your mouth and say, I don't want to work weekends, but the consequences of that might be more severe. So you can reply back to your friend and say, easier said than done. Now you can add on that's easier said than done, or you can even start with the action in the gerund. Talking to my boss is easier said than done. Now, when you say this, your friend will probably agree and say, yeah, I get that, which means I understand, or you're right, or even I see where you're coming from, which is another way of saying I understand your perspective or your opinion. So maybe your friend knows you want to practice your English speaking skills, so your friend says to you, just start conversations with native speakers. And what can you reply back with? Easier said than done. Or maybe you can use this different phrase and say starting conversations with natives is becoming easier with every lesson I watch. Does that describe you? If it does, put that's right, put that's right in the comments. And don't worry about taking notes because I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description.
Nothing. Okay, so this one, way easier said than done. But as much as you can practice it, you will see it works like magic.
Now, doing this is easier said than done. It's very hard to know, by the way, what it is you take for granted. And the reason is that you take it for granted.
This is easier said than done, but this is the job of the food movement.
Number 2, it's been one of those days. Ooh, do you know what this means? This is used as a full phrase to describe a day full of small problems, frustrations, or stress. So if your friend asks you, how's it going? Or how was your day? You can reply back usually with some tone and facial expression and say, oh, it's been one of those days. Or you might use this as a reason why you're behaving more negatively than normal. You can say, sorry, I'm grumpy. Grumpy means you're a little irritated, angry, annoyed. Sorry, I'm grumpy. It's been one of those days. So that's the reason why. Now you can also use this phrase and then explain the reasons why. It's been one of those days. I missed the train. I was 20 minutes late for an important meeting. I spilled coffee on my shirt, and the vending machine ate my money, which means the vending machine took your money but did not give you the candy bar you so desperately wanted. Now keep in mind, this phrase is used with small problems, frustrations, or stress.
It's been one of those days and I'm angry.
It's been just one of those days.
But it's one of those days where I've just been, really taking it easy. And
Number 3, I love this one. You read my mind. Do you know this one? This means that you said or did exactly what I was thinking. So maybe you say, hey, Jennifer, let's stay in, which means stay at home. Let's stay in and watch a movie tonight. Now I can reply back and say, you read my mind. So this means that I was just about to suggest that we stay in and watch a movie tonight. Now, to acknowledge that you and your friend had the exact same idea, one of you can add on a bonus phrase, great minds think alike. Notice this phrase, you read my mind. This uses the verb to read, but is conjugated in the past simple. So of course that pronunciation is the same as read. You read my mind. So the mind is also possessive to whoever is speaking.
Yeah, you read my mind. I got into trouble.
Oh my God, you read my mind, right?
Yeah, you read my mind. I was about to go into that after we cover this. I'll be right there.
Number 4, you need this phrase in your vocabulary. I'm running a bit late. Now, to say I'm running late means I'm going to be late. I'm running a little late, or you can use a bit late. They have the same meaning. This is very commonly used to send a quick text message. Sorry, running late, be there in 10. Now, in text messages, we omit words that are not needed, but in the full form, you would say, sorry, I'm running late. I'll be there in 10 minutes. And notice that to run late, this is most commonly used in the present continuous. I'm running late because it's taking place now.
I'm actually running a little bit late for tea with the Queen.
I'm running a little bit late.
Are you enjoying this lesson? If you are, then I want to tell you about the Finally Fluent Academy. This is my premium training program where we study native English speakers from TV, movies, YouTube, and the news so you can improve your listening skills of fast English, expand your vocabulary with natural expressions, and learn advanced grammar easily. Plus, you'll have me as your personal coach. You can look in the description for the link to learn more, or you can go to my website and click on Finally Fluent Academy. Now let's continue with our lesson. Number 5, it slipped my mind. This is one you'll probably use every day. It means I forgot. Now it means I forgot something or to do something. This is generally used to admit you forgot something or to do something, so it's to take responsibility. It's generally used with minor responsibilities or events. For example, your friend might ask you, did you make the reservation? Notice that collocation, you make a reservation, let's say for dinner at a restaurant. And you can reply back and say, oh, sorry, it slipped my mind, which means I forgot to make the reservation. And then you can reply back and say, I'll do it now, or I'll make the reservation now. I had another example I wanted to share with you, but it completely slipped my mind. And notice I use completely to emphasize this statement. Now I could add on, I'm sure the example will come back to me. So the information will return to my mind.
There was one more thing I wanted to ask you about that, but it slipped my mind. Give me 1 second.
I had one other and it just slipped my mind.
So sorry, it just slipped my mind with all the moving, all that stuff.
Number 6, it's not the end of the world. Do you know this one? This is a great one to have. It means it's not as bad or significant as it seems. So I could say to you, making grammar mistakes while speaking is not the end of the world. It's not as significant as it may seem. Or I could say, I'm so sorry, I forgot to make the reservation yesterday. It completely slipped my mind. Now my friend could try to make me feel better by saying, it's not the end of the world, which is like saying, it's not a big deal, or that's okay, or no worries.
It's not the end of the world for the bond market by any means, but the market reaction to the Fed statement in the chairman's discussion was really quite something.
It's not the end of the world if you missed the soccer game.
If it's not absolutely perfect, it's not the end of the world because we're referencing from the same phase every time.
Number 7, thanks for the heads up. Do you know what a heads up is? This is a warning or advanced notice. Now, this is used when someone gives you useful information ahead of time, so in advance. You can also say just a heads up that we're closing early tomorrow for a private event. So maybe the cafe you normally go to says this to you. Now you can reply and say thanks for the heads up. The because it's a specific heads up. Or you could say I appreciate the heads up. It's like saying thanks for letting me know. So your coworker might say to you, just a heads up that the boss is in a bad mood today. This is an example that one of my students gave during a live lesson, and I loved it so much, I'm sharing it here with you. Now you can reply back and say, thanks for the heads up. Thanks for the information, because now I know I need to behave differently around my boss because she's in a bad mood.
Thanks for the heads up.
Thanks for the heads up of what content to expect.
Thanks for the heads up on the upcoming policies. We'll look forward to seeing how US aid is innovating.
Number 8, don't quote me on that. This is another example that one of my amazing students used, and I loved it so much, I'm sharing it with everyone. This means I'm not 100% sure, so don't repeat what I just said as fact. So this is used when giving information that you're not sure is 100% correct. For example, I think the client is coming at 3:30, but don't quote me on that. It's like saying, I may be wrong. Or you could say, he might be working from home today, but don't quote me on that. Again, I could be wrong. Notice this is always used in the negative.
I think it's like $1.4 billion. Don't quote me on that.
Don't quote me on that, but I imagine if you Google it, you might find something that would approximate that.
Number 9, just to be on the safe side. Do you know this one? This goes with the last one very well. It means to be extra careful or cautious. So this is generally used when taking a precautionary action. For example, I think the client is coming at 3:30, but ask Mark just to be on the safe side. So just as a precaution. With small everyday things, someone might say, take an umbrella just to be on the safe side. As a precaution, you can start with the phrase, just to be on the safe side, take an umbrella. So notice the phrase can go before or after the statement.
Just to be on the safe side, members of the current administration might want to brush up on their job skills, just in case.
Do I go lower than the norm just to be on the safe side?
Just to be on the safe side, I decided not to remarry and not to have children. So much for that problem.
Number 10, let me get back to you on that. This means I'll reply later after I verify the information. So this is used to delay your answer until you have more information. So it's a great phrase to have. So if someone asks you, when's the client coming? You can say, I think at 3:30. I think the client's coming at 3:30, but let me get back to you on that just to be on the safe side. So you will verify the information and then let the person know. Now, this is commonly used with social invitations. A friend could ask you, are you free on Saturday? And you don't know what your plans are yet. So you can say to your friend, let me get back to you tomorrow. This is like saying, I'll let you know tomorrow. So to get back to someone means to respond. So if your friend asks you, is Sarah coming to the party? You can say, I don't know. She hasn't gotten back to me yet. She hasn't replied yet.
Yeah, and let me get back to you on that. I will follow up with you. So,
let me get back to you on that. What's your next one? Well, let me get back to you on that. Thank you.
Number 11, let me sleep on that. This means I need more time to think about this decision. So for example, your friend could ask you, are you going to tell your boss what the client said? And then you can reply back and say, I haven't decided. I need to sleep on it. So this is saying I need some time, 24 hours perhaps, to think, reflect, analyze, weigh the pros and cons. This can also be used as advice. Your friend could say, I know you're upset, but before you quit, I suggest you sleep on it. You take the night to really consider this decision.
And you can't decide how to interpret it. And so you say, let me sleep on it.
Let me sleep on it. Let me think if I really want to be bitten by this creature.
Let me just sleep on it.
Number 12, I'm on the fence about it. Do you know what this means? This means I haven't made a decision yet, or simply, I'm undecided. So this is used when you're unsure between two or more options. For example, are you going to your ex's wedding? I'm on the fence about it. You haven't decided. Or you could say, I'm on the fence about quitting my job. So about is a preposition. If you use a verb, it's in the gerund. Now, if you say, I'm on the fence about quitting my job, maybe your friend would say, you should sleep on it. Or take more time to decide just to be on the safe side.
Sort of on the fence about is the road it takes between comedy and drama, back and forth and back and forth.
But I'm still on the fence about it. So I'm trying to make it as transparent as possible.
That's why I'm kind of on the fence about it. I can go with yes, yeah.
Number 13, don't jump to conclusions. This is an important phrase. It means don't judge a situation too quickly or without enough information. So it's used to slow someone down when they're making a quick judgment. So if your friend says, Sarah hasn't gotten back to me yet, remember, Sarah hasn't replied to me yet. She must be mad at me. That's what your friend thinks. Now you can reply back and say, don't jump to conclusion. It's only been one day. She's probably just busy. So don't judge the situation too quickly. Or commonly, my boss asked to see me this afternoon. He's going to fire me. I know it. Does that ever run through your mind? Now, hopefully your coworker says to you, don't jump to conclusions.
So basically, don't jump to conclusions with only a little data.
A Hindu group in India, I'll tell you the name, but don't jump to conclusions. It's not the group you're thinking of.
Don't jump to conclusions or doubt what they're saying or give instant answers or quote Christian cliches.
Number 14, that's a tough call. This is used to say that's a difficult decision to make. So a call is a decision, and tough and difficult are the same thing. So this is used when two options are close in benefits or risk. So for example, the forecast says there's a 45% chance of rain tomorrow. Should we keep the event outside or move it inside? And your friend can reply back and say, that's a tough call. Now maybe they would add on and say, personally, I'd move it inside just to be on the safe side. Or your friend could say, should I accept the job in Chicago or Manhattan? I'm on the fence. I'm undecided. Now your friend can say, that's a tough call. Both are amazing opportunities. You should sleep on it.
I was just going to say that's a tough call, but that's how I would make it.
That's a tough call. And eventually the system's going to fall apart.
It's a very tough call to make.
Number 15, I'll take care of it. This is used to say, I'll handle this task or situation. So this is used when you volunteer for a responsibility. So if you're in a meeting and the boss says, does anyone have time to drop off the package? And there are 5 people in the room. You can say, I'll take care of it. You can also say, I can take care of it. I can take care of dropping off the package. So notice if you specify the verb, it's in the ing form. Or at home, maybe your wife or sister or mother says, I'll make dinner when I get home. Now you say to that person, oh, don't worry about it. I'll take care of dinner. So here, notice it's a noun. You've had a long day. Let me take care of it. So let me accept the responsibility for that. Great job. Now let's keep going and you'll learn commonly used words. And these words are a mixture of nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs. The first word is mingle. Mingle. Do you know what this means? Understanding meaning depends on context. So here's an example sentence. She enjoys mingling with colleagues at after-work events. Now, do you know what this means? Mingle is a verb. You could tell by the sentence structure she enjoys doing something, an action. Now to mingle, this means to move around and talk with different people in a social setting. And that's how it was used in that example. It can also mean to mix or combine. So I'll share an example of that as well. So to move and talk, you can say at the conference, guests mingled over coffee before the keynote speech. So there was talking and there was movement as well. Now, in terms of mix or combine, this sounds quite poetic. You might say the smell of fresh bread mingled with the aroma of coffee in the cafe. So those two smells combined and mixed. Don't worry about taking notes. I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description. Now let's listen to some natives using this word in real speech.
We're going to mingle here for a little while.
And again, those are groups that don't often mingle.
This let their genes mingle and expanded the gene pool.
Our next word is loom. Loom. Dark clouds loomed on the horizon. What does this mean? Well, hopefully you know that it's a verb, and this means to appear as a large, uncertain, or threatening shape. Now, it can also mean to seem about to happen. So those dark clouds, they could represent a threatening shape. Now, let's listen to this one. The deadline looms closer every day. So this sounds like the deadline is getting closer, but it's threatening. Here's another one that sounds threatening or uncertain. A tall figure, so a figure is an outline of a person. A tall figure loomed over him in the dark hallway. That sounds like something you would read in a horror story.
Deadlines loom, competing commitments clamor for our attention.
President Trump ends the year defiant, but challenges loom.
Let's see if you know this very common word, pebble. Pebble. I think I have a pebble in my shoe. What is a pebble? Well, you know it's a noun. A pebble is a small, smooth stone found on beaches or riverbeds. I personally have pebbles all over my yard because they're used to cover the path instead of concrete. So you can say the path was covered in pebbles. It's really quite pretty. Or you might say she carried a lucky pebble in her pocket. A lot of people have a lucky charm. A beautiful pebble that you found on the beach could represent that.
Every pebble that you see on the ground there is a piece of dinosaur bone.
That one person can be like a stone, a pebble, thrown in a lake.
This is an image of a pebble mosaic that I created.
How about dabble? Dabble. He dabbled in photography during college. So what does this mean? You know it's a verb, right? You saw it in the past simple. Well, if you dabble in something, in our example, photography, it means you take part in an activity, but in a casual or superficial way. So you're not dabbling with your English, you're serious, right? But there are many times when you do just dabble for pleasure, for general interest, curiosity. For example, I'm not a serious musician. I just dabble from time to time. Or many people dabble in cooking, new recipes, but never get serious. And that's okay.
We knew we would always dabble in that because it was something like a hobby that we enjoyed.
Well, today I kind of dabble in a little bit of everything.
The military is not supposed to dabble in domestic affairs.
Our next word, pry. Pry. She hates when neighbors pry into her personal life. What does this mean? Well, you get the sense that is something negative, right? She hates. And you know, it's a verb. To pry means to try to find out private information about someone or something. It has another meaning, and it's when you open something with force. But with the first meaning, to find out personal information, we commonly say, I don't mean to pry. I don't mean to pry, but, and now you're going to ask someone a personal question that you're not sure if they feel comfortable talking about. So you use I don't mean to pry to acknowledge that you're asking about a personal question. I don't mean to pry, but did you set a date for your wedding yet? Maybe this is a sensitive topic for that person. Now, to try to force open, you can say he pried the lid off the paint can. It was difficult to open.
We also need to periodically pry them away from their modern miracles.
You don't have to pry into people's inner work lives. In fact, that would really be a bad idea.
Along with Peter, she's going to pry open the lid for us on how the lobby works.
Our next word, hunch. Hunch. You might say, I had a hunch she would get the promotion. Oh, I had a hunch. So hunch is a noun, and a hunch is a feeling or guess based on intuition rather than evidence. For example, his hunch, because it's a noun, it belongs to him, his hunch about the weather turned out to be right. So he didn't look at the forecast, he just felt like it might rain, even though it was a beautiful day. And guess what? It rained, so his hunch was right. Or you can say they followed a hunch and discovered a great new restaurant. They didn't have any evidence, it was just this feeling, a hunch.
We tested her and her hunch proved correct.
I think she had the hunch that I wanted to be an actor.
You know, it's my hunch. Just do it. Don't think about it.
How about urge? Listen to that pronunciation, urge. My mom is urging me to set a date for the wedding because she won't stop prying into my personal life, right? So what does this mean? Well, it's a verb and it means to strongly encourage or persuade. So you might say she urged him to apply for the new position. You should apply, you must apply, please, please, please apply. So that's how you can urge someone. Or the ad urges customers to try the latest product.
But Howard urged me to open myself up to uncertainty.
Baron Cohen urged the billionaire club, dubbed the Silicon Six, particularly Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg, to take more responsibility.
I really urge you to pay attention to every bit of what you put into the dish.
Let's review cling. Cling. The child clung to her mother during the storm. What does this mean? Well, you know it's a verb, and you just learned that it's an irregular past simple, clung. And the verb cling means to hold on tightly. Now, it can be physically, so the child clung to her mother, but it can also be somewhat emotionally as well. So physically, you can even say wet clothes clung to his body after the rain. So you know what a t-shirt feels like when it's soaking wet. It clings to you. Now, more emotionally, you might say some employees cling to old habits. So they hold on tightly, but it's not to something physical, it's a habit, instead of adapting.
It must also be attracted to the glass, causing it to cling to the side.
So we don't have to cling on to things that just don't work.
But we will always cling to the comfort of what appears to be useful.
Do you know this word? Blunt. Blunt. She gave a blunt answer to the question. Blunt is an adjective. It means direct and straightforward, but sometimes in a way that seems rude. So he was known for his blunt way of speaking. If he doesn't like your shirt, he says, I don't like your shirt. He's very direct and straightforward, but that can seem rude sometimes, right? It depends. Or remember when I explained we add, I don't mean to pry, but we often use the same technique and say, I'm sorry to be blunt, but you're apologizing in advance for saying something very directly that may seem rude. I'm sorry to be blunt, but you're not qualified for the position.
Because to be brutally blunt, they put test prep on steroids.
If I may be blunt, why are you here on the Vogue floor?
Well, he lost his patronage, but he's very blunt about it himself.
Let's review brash. Brash. Teenagers can sometimes seem brash without meaning to. What does this mean? Brash is an adjective. It means confident, but in a rude, noisy, or pushy way. So not a positive way. You might say his brash behavior annoyed his coworkers. So maybe he felt so confident in his idea, but he was pushy about it, and he told everyone else their idea was bad. Or the salesperson made a brash pitch to the clients, the similar meaning as I just explained.
He was brash, irreverent.
Most commonly, we associate these traits with brash men.
Bernini was a brash young man of 25 when he sculpted this.
Let's review aloof. Aloof. My teenager is so aloof. Well, this is an adjective. This often describes teenagers. It can describe anyone though. If you're aloof, it means you're not friendly or forthcoming, so you're rather emotionally distant. If you ask your 16-year-old son how his day was and he's just like, good, maybe you could describe that person as aloof. Or you might say she remained aloof during the meeting. So she didn't say a lot, she didn't show her emotion, so you don't know if she's happy, upset, you just don't know. Or the manager stayed aloof from the office gossip. So in this case, it sounds a little more positive because the manager just ignored the gossip, didn't respond to it, just remained distant from the gossip.
My peers and my boss all thought I was aloof and arrogant.
I became very, very aloof and removed and was a loner.
I think rock musicians are more aloof.
Do you know this one? Hefty. Hefty. She received a hefty raise after her performance review. This is an adjective and it's positive. It means large, heavy, or substantial. So in the context of a hefty raise, that's very positive. A large raise, a substantial raise. But it can also mean heavy. He carried a hefty bag of groceries. Or in this case, it's not positive because the company paid a hefty fine. A fine is a penalty, a financial penalty. So you want the penalty to be small. You don't want it to be hefty for breaking the rules. That's why they have to pay the hefty fine.
To one is still a hefty ratio.
It's a little hefty.
I'm drizzling each with a hefty hit of yellow food coloring.
Let's review bolster. Do you know this word? Bolster. The data bolsters our argument. Bolster is a verb, and it means to support, strengthen, or improve. So he tried to bolster her confidence before the speech. That's a positive thing. Or extra funding will bolster the research project. It will improve it.
Let us seize this moment together. Let us bolster security. Let us seek new avenues of peace.
I can bolster my own identity.
And that's why we'll continue to bolster the defense of our frontline allies in Poland and Romania.
Do you know the word meager? Meager. Dinner has been meager since I lost my job. So always look to context. If the person lost their job, well, it's probably negative, and it is in this case. So meager is an adjective. It means very small or insufficient in amount. You can say the workers received a meager salary, not a positive thing. Or they survived on meager resources during the trip. They had insufficient, very small amount of resources.
They had like very plain, bland food, a meager diet.
A lot of sales guys will come from meager backgrounds.
The price for the 7 vertebra is a meager $295.
Let's review daunting. Do you know this word? Daunting. Climbing the mountain looked daunting from below. Again, look to context for meaning. This is an adjective. It means seeming difficult to deal with or intimidating. Starting a new job can be daunting, intimidating, difficult to deal with. She faced the daunting task of organizing the event. So just by adding the word daunting, you know that organizing the event seems like a difficult, challenging task.
1,048,576 discs would be daunting, but entirely doable.
It was daunting to think about the scope of the project.
It was daunting. It had really beaten it out of me.
Now let's move on to phrasal verbs, because natives use them every day, and you should too. You'll learn how to use these phrasal verbs in a natural context. First, let's review the category of socializing and small talk. So imagine a native speaker walked up to you and said, "When did you take up yoga?" What's the phrasal verb here? When did you take up yoga? To take something up, this is the phrasal verb, and it means to start an activity. And you start it as a regular routine. So you don't just do yoga once. It sounds like you're going to do yoga every week or twice a week. Now remember, your phrasal verb is take up, but you need to conjugate that according to the subject and time reference. So maybe you could say, I've been thinking about, so about is a preposition. I've been thinking about taking up tennis again this summer. So starting tennis as a regular activity.
Honey, when did Peter Griffin take up jogging?
Or maybe someone says to you, don't take up the negative imperative. Don't take up another activity unless you have time for it. That's good advice.
I could take up yoga.
You have the body type.
Or maybe you're thinking, thankfully I found Jennifer's channel shortly after I took up learning English. Is that something that you're thinking? If it is, put that's right, put that's right in the comments. Now let's say you're talking to your coworker and you say, he always brings up politics at work. What's the phrasal verb here? To bring something up. This means to start talking about a topic. Maybe you can say, can we not bring up that topic at dinner tonight? So this is a way of asking to not discuss something. Can we not bring that up?
So stop bringing it up. It's not fair.
Or maybe you say, he keeps bringing up her trip. He's clearly impressed. He keeps talking about it.
Thanks, Wally, for bringing that up.
Let's review this sentence, and where is the phrasal verb? She really got along with my cousin. Do you know this one? And notice sometimes phrasal verbs have two prepositions. So the phrasal verb here is to get along with someone. And this means to have a good relationship with someone. So you could ask, are you getting along with your new coworkers? Or maybe they would get along better if they communicated more. So notice that conditional structure, and would is a modal verb, and that's why you have the base verb following it. They would get along.
What is
is it? You two don't get along?
We get along just fine.
Now maybe your friend says to you, you'll never guess who I ran into today. This is a must-know phrasal verb. Do you know it? To run into someone. This means to meet someone but by chance. So you weren't planning on seeing that person.
It's nice to run into you.
You could say, if I run into her again, I'll say hi this time. So if I see her again, but by chance, or maybe I'll ask her for her phone number.
See, I ran into her at Target.
Or how about this one? I haven't run into anyone I know since I moved back home. So putting it in the negative means you're out in the world, getting groceries, going to the bank, but you haven't seen anyone you know. You haven't run into anyone. Now let's move on and imagine you're at a cafe, and let's review some common phrasal verbs. Maybe you go to order something and they say, sorry, we sold out of chocolate donuts. And you really wanted a chocolate donut. What's the phrasal verb here? Well, it's to sell out of something. So your verb is sell, and that's what you conjugate. And this means to have no more of something to sell to someone. So you could ask, do you think they'll sell out of those donuts again tomorrow?
They just sold out.
Already?
Or maybe, we're about to sell out, so grab one while you can. Now notice here the noun wasn't specified. We're about to sell out. If you specify the noun, that's when you add the additional preposition. We're about to sell out of donuts.
Sold out.
So they sold out of donuts, and you can say, I should cut back on sugar anyway. What's the phrasal verb here? To cut back on something. So notice again, we have that additional preposition on if you specify the something.
I think we need to cut back on our spending.
And if you cut back on something, you reduce the amount of something. So you could say, I've been cutting back on coffee lately. This is the present perfect continuous because it started in the past, maybe last Monday or last month, and it continues until now. I've been cutting back on coffee lately. It was giving me the jitters. This is the jitters. So this is why you need to cut back, reduce the amount. Or someone says to you, if you want to lose weight, I suggest cutting back on carbs. So reducing the amount of carbs. Now notice after suggest, you can use a gerund. I suggest cutting back on carbs.
We're not cutting back on food. Anything else?
Now you're still at the cafe and they say to you, we're trying out a new sugar-free cookie recipe. What's the phrasal verb here? To try out. This means to use or test something to see if it works well. For example, let's try out their new seasonal latte next time. Well, in this case, working well means you either like the taste of it or you don't like the taste of it, but you'll never know until you try it out.
Have you ever tried it out?
Or you can say after you try out the new blender, after you see how the blender works, let me know your thoughts. Was it a good blender, a bad one? Should I buy one? Do you recommend it? Let me know your thoughts. We're still at a cafe and you say to your friend, you only picked at your cookie. You don't like it? So the phrasal verb is to pick at, to pick at. If you pick at your cookie, it means you only eat a small amount of it. So we use this with food specifically. She picked at her salad, but barely touched the rest of her meal. So she ate a small amount of the salad. Maybe she didn't like it, or maybe she wasn't feeling well, she wasn't hungry. Who knows the reason? Or you can say, I was in a Zoom meeting over lunch and could only pick at my sandwich. Because you're on camera, you don't want to eat a big sandwich, so you just try to take a little bite whenever you can.
No, thank you. I'll
Just pick yours.
Let's talk about phrasal verbs you can use with meetings and appointments. Someone could ask you, can we set up a meeting for next week? The phrasal verb here is to set up. And of course, this means to schedule or arrange. You can say, I'll be setting up a few interviews this afternoon.
The interview's already set up.
Or you can ask, did you already set up the call with the designer? Did you schedule the call? Did you set it up?
Set up a meeting.
Or if someone asks you, please follow up with us next week. This is a must-know phrasal verb. It's to follow up. Now you can continue on and say with someone, on or about something. So if you specify the reason why, you can use the preposition on or about. It doesn't matter which one you use, and native speakers use both equally. Now this means to continue a previous conversation. For example, I was supposed to follow up yesterday, but I forgot. I was supposed to call you to discuss something we previously discussed. Now remember, you can also say, I was supposed to follow up with you on the report or about the report yesterday, but I forgot.
Well, I'm just following up on a chat room message.
Or you can say, it's been 3 days and they haven't responded. Should I follow up or should I wait? So should I continue that discussion we previously had? Or should I wait?
It's too soon.
Maybe your boss asks you, have you checked in with the client yet? What's the phrasal verb here? It's to check in with someone, and again, you can use on or about something. This means to contact someone, and you're doing that to make sure there are no problems. For example, don't forget to check in with them, maybe it's the clients or your team, before you go on vacation. So contact them to make sure they understand everything, they can access everything, there are no problems. Now again, remember, you can say don't forget to check in with them on the invoice or about the invoice before you go on vacation. Contact them to make sure there are no problems with the invoice.
If anyone finds anything, check in with me.
Let's review this sentence. My boss checks in with me every hour. It's annoying. We often use this with frustration because your boss contacts you every hour to make sure there are no problems.
Check back in with me in July.
Now remember that phrasal verbs have different meanings depending on context. So if you're at a hotel and someone says, don't forget to check in before noon.
Checking in? Yeah, we're checking in.
This means register your arrival at a hotel. But if you're in a meeting and someone says, don't forget to check in before noon, it means to contact someone to make sure there are no issues. So you have to understand the context to know the meaning of phrasal verbs. How about this sentence? I blocked off an hour for our meeting. What's the phrasal verb? To block off. And this means to reserve time in your schedule. So someone might ask, should we block off some time on Friday? Should we reserve some time? Or you can say, I'm blocking off tomorrow afternoon to catch up on emails. So in your calendar, no one will be able to schedule time with you because you blocked it off.
I will block off the afternoon.
Now let's talk about giving compliments. How about this sentence? That outfit really brings out your eyes.
Brown one brings out your eyes.
What's the phrasal verb here? To bring out. Now remember, we previously learned to bring up. So also notice that changing the preposition can completely change the meaning. So here, to bring out, it means to emphasize, highlight, or make something more noticeable or attractive. So I could say to you as a compliment, words of praise, encouragement, support, great choice. That frame brings out the colors in the photo. Or I can say your confidence is starting to bring out the best in your team. So it's highlighting, emphasizing the best qualities. Let's review this sentence. I want to point out how well you handled that irate customer. What's an irate customer? An angry customer, an upset customer. And what's the phrasal verb here? To point out. This means to bring attention to something. For example, you've been doing such a great job lately, and I just wanted to point that out. I wanted to point that out. I wanted to emphasize that. So that would be a very nice thing to say to someone, or say in a meeting to someone as well.
Thank you, Amy, for pointing that out.
You're so welcome.
Or you could say, I appreciated that you pointed out how much my design skills have improved. So you can offer this as words of appreciation to someone. What's the phrasal verb in this sentence? Who came up with this great idea? So the phrasal verb is to come up with. And again, if you specify the noun, the something, you need that additional preposition with, to come up with something. And this means to create or suggest an idea or plan. You're going to come up with something brilliant again, I know it. So you can offer that as words of encouragement to someone.
That's good. Who came up with that?
Or I can't believe you came up with that slogan on the spot. So on the spot means instantly. That's incredible. This next phrasal verb is a very positive thing to say to someone. You've really stepped up lately.
Thanks for stepping up today.
The phrasal verb is to step up. This means to take on more responsibility, or it can mean to improve one's performance.
I'm thinking about stepping it up.
So your boss might say, I noticed how you stepped up when the deadline was moved. I just wanted to point out the great leadership you showed. Or you can say, she's been stepping up in every way since Peter quit. So maybe she had to take on more responsibility because Peter quit, or she improved her performance because Peter quit, but she really stepped up.
Let's keep going. Now we'll read a news article together, and you'll learn vocabulary in context. You'll also learn the correct grammar and pronunciation at the same time.
Our headline, the country that measures happiness. Any idea which country this could be? Well, let's find out. On the eastern edge of the Himalayas, nestled between India and Tibet, lies the tiny nation of Bhutan. So Bhutan is the country that measures happiness. And notice they described it as the tiny nation of Bhutan. Tiny means extremely small. And let's review nestled. First of all, notice this pronunciation of the ED. This is the past participle of the verb to nestle, but here it's to be nestled, nestled. And it functions as an adjective in this case, nestled, old. So a soft D, old, nestled. And this means to be securely or comfortably placed in a location. It's used more in a literary sense. It sounds very poetic. You might hear this in a real estate listing to make a location sound desirable. For example, the cottage is nestled, to be nestled. So this stays in the ED form, nestled. And then to be, this is your verb, you conjugate. The cottage is nestled between a river and a valley. So this isn't everyday speech, it's more poetic, more literary. So again, maybe you're reading a book or an article and it says the baby was sleeping soundly, nestled in her mother's arms. So carefully, securely, comfortably placed in her mother's arms. So you will see this a lot, but more in a literary, poetic sense. Let's continue. Fiercely proud and protective of its traditions, Bhutan has been closed to outside influences for centuries. So notice how this information here describes Bhutan. Now, all of this can be removed from the sentence, and the sentence would still be grammatically correct. So this is a great way that you as a speaker can sound more advanced, or you can make more of an impact. You can be more descriptive by adding information at the beginning of your sentence. So here the two adjectives are proud. Adding fiercely intensifies it, means strongly, extremely, fiercely proud and protective of its traditions. So the adjectives are proud and protective. Thinking about that structure, you could say, I would say, hardworking and determined. My students never give up on their dreams. So this is the complete sentence. My students never give up on their dreams. Now I'm just giving more information about who my students are, simply using the adjectives hardworking and determined. Or how about this? Enthusiastic and motivated. My students eagerly await. So eagerly describes how they're waiting. It means with enthusiasm, eagerly await my new lessons. And await is a more poetic way than saying wait for. You could say wait for. Notice if you use wait, you have to use the present preposition for. You wait for something, but you just await something. So await my new lessons. And this is a little more literary since I'm communicating this in a more literary way. Now, I'm sure you're hardworking and determined and enthusiastic and motivated, and you eagerly await my new lessons. So put that's me, put that's me in the comments. So, and you can practice using this more advanced literary sentence structure. Okay, let's continue. The nation has decided to take a unique approach to westernization, creating a concept known as the Gross National Happiness Index. So you may be familiar with the GDP, the Gross Domestic Product. So this is the Gross National Happiness Index. Don't be fooled by the name. Remember, the name is the Gross National Happiness Index. Don't be fooled by the name. So this is in the imperative in the negative. So the imperative uses the base verb only, and it's used to give an instruction. Both of these examples are in the imperative. Subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. I'm giving you an instruction. So please do that now. Subscribe. Subscribe. It's very common for YouTubers to say, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, but that is also in the imperative because it starts with the base verb, hit the subscribe button. So here's the example in the imperative. Now, I can add please in front of my sentence to sound more polite, especially if you're giving an instruction to someone. Please support my channel by liking this video, and please do that. It truly does support this channel. Now, support is the base verb in the imperative. This is just additional information to sound more polite. So this is in the imperative negative. Don't be fooled by the name. So in this case, fooled, notice that pronunciation, ooled, fooled, fooled. That's another way of saying tricked or deceived by the name. So don't be fooled. Now here, notice with tricked, it's a soft T sound, tricked, but this is a soft D sound, fooled, and deceived. This is also a soft D sound. Don't be fooled by the name. So you can be tricked, fooled, or deceived by something because it's the passive form. If it were active, you would say the name tricked me or fooled me or deceived me. This is not just a measure of how much people smile and laughed. So this is why you shouldn't be fooled, tricked, or deceived. It's not just a measure of how much. So how much is the quantity? how much time, how much money, quantity. You could also say how often people smile. How often is the frequency? How much, quantity, how often, frequency. It's a holistic approach to sustainable development that gives as much weight to human flourishing as it does wealth. So human flourishing, to flourish means that you are performing well, you're functioning well. So if you're flourishing, that could be your sense of overall development and satisfaction, that measure of happiness, as it does wealth. Now here, as much weight. So if you give weight to something, a measure, it means that you value it. So how much value you give to flourishing as a person, that indicator of happiness, compared to wealth. In an everyday context, I could say students need to give as much weight. You could also say as much importance to pronunciation as grammar. Now you can have as something, so I could just say as wealth, or you can say as they do. So the subject is they because it's students. In this case, it is talking about it's a holistic development, okay? So here, they is the subject, and then do is the auxiliary verb that matches the subject. They do grammar. But you could simply say as grammar. So if you value grammar this much, if you think grammar is this important, well then how much you value pronunciation should be the same. That would be as much weight, as much importance. Let's continue. The Center for Bhutan and GNH, so Gross National Happiness Studies, is responsible for administering the Gross National Happiness Surveys. So notice here, to be responsible for, and then because for is a preposition, you need the gerund verb in ing, or you could also say to be responsible for something, such as the surveys. And of course, you need to conjugate your verb to be. So here it is because all of this is conjugated as it, third person singular. It is. But let's say it were two people. You could say they are responsible for the surveys. So you can have responsible for gerund or noun. They measure 9 key areas of happiness every 5 years. Psychological well-being, health, education, good governance, ecology, time use, community, vitality, culture, and living standards. So these are the 9 key areas, and key in this case means important, the ones you want to focus on, important areas, key areas. Let's continue. According to officials, so notice this preposition, according to someone. Now, the someone could be a company, it could be a something, according to the company, according to the government, which is, of course, made up of individuals, but you can focus more on a something, a company, or the individuals. So officials, these are the people who work for a specific institution. This is often used with government officials. So according to officials, if a government policy doesn't result in the well-being of Bhutanese, that policy will never be approved in the country. So again, this is officials, government officials in Bhutan saying this. Let's review this preposition here, result in something. So to result in something, you're talking about the cause and the effect. So this is the effect here, the result in the well-being of Bhutanese. Now you can also use lead to. So if a government policy doesn't create, result in, lead to, so notice that preposition change, lead to the well-being of Bhutanese. So here I gave a everyday example. We increased our prices, we raised our prices, you could say, and it resulted in a lot of complaints. So this was the cause and the effect. Now, you could also say lead to, but the past simple is led. And then remember, your preposition choice is to. Now, it's very common to also use raise, so I'll put that here. We raised our prices. Let's continue. But Bhutan is not the happiest country in the world. So notice but is used to introduce a contrast. So a contrast would either be a negative to a positive or a positive to a negative. So here, this is all very positive about this focus on well-being and happiness. Now they're introducing a negative, so it'll be a contrast. But Bhutan is not the happiest country in the world. It actually ranks 95th out of 156 countries. So here, notice 95th. So this is a voiced or unvoiced th, fifth, out of. So this is when you have that comparison, out of. So this is its number and this is the total number. And to rank is for your position. So that's your score, basically. And here, actually is used to clarify information. I hear students use the word actually incorrectly because they think it's more to introduce information, but it's only used to introduce a clarifying point. So let's say I've been talking about this conference at work for quite a while, and one day you just asked me, so when is the conference? Now I want to clarify information. So I can say, actually, it was canceled. I can certainly just say, it was canceled, but actually introduces that there is a miscommunication or something needs to be clarified because you believe the conference is taking place, but new information is that the conference was canceled, but you don't have that information. So that's how you can use actually. Actually, it was canceled. So remember that actually is only used to clarify information, not simply to introduce information. Let's continue. Much of that has to do with the nation's poverty. So much of that, that being its score, its rank being 95th out of 156 countries. So much of that has to do with the nation's poverty and the challenges of bringing economic and social equity to a predominantly agricultural society. So predominantly means that agriculture is the main part of the society. There are other areas, but they are small in comparison to agriculture. So that's how you can use predominantly. You could say our clients are predominantly from the US. That means the majority of them, 80, 85, 90. Now, if you use actually, it means you're clarifying. So someone could say to you, oh, so are you going to Europe for your clients? So they assume your clients are in Europe. And then you could say, actually, to clarify, actually, our clients are predominantly from the US. So no, we're not going to Europe for that conference. Let's continue. What sets Bhutan apart from other countries is that their vision is to value well-being and community metrics as highly as economic metrics. Okay, let's talk about this. What sets Bhutan apart? So you can use a something like a country. You can use a someone as well. This is a very useful phrase. It means what makes Bhutan unique or different. So unlike other countries. So unlike other countries, unique or different. Now, I could say what sets my lessons apart, because you need a something here. So what sets my lessons, I could use me as well and say what sets me apart is the focus on real world English. So here, this would be what sets my lessons or what sets me. Now, you only need to use from if you include the others, if you specify the others. So in this case, it's from other countries. Now, in my context, it would be from other teachers or from other channels. And there's an S because there's more than one here. But if you don't include this part, then you don't need the from. So what sets my lessons apart is the focus on real world English. Now, in a job interview, it's a very common question to be asked, what sets you apart? What sets you apart? Now, again, if you use the someone else, the other noun, you would use from. What sets you apart from the other candidates? So you need to talk about why you're unique, why you're different, why you're unlike the other candidates. What makes you special? So that's a great phrase to have in your vocabulary. And what sets Bhutan apart is that their vision is to value well-being and community metrics. So a metric is a source of measurement. So a metric would be how they measure well-being, the different points. So that would just be a measurement. To value well-being and community measurements, metrics, as highly as, so as much as, because you can have a high ranking or weight or importance, remember that word weight, or a low. So that's why it's as highly as, but you could also use as much as economic metrics. So again, measures. Let's continue. The World Bank calls Bhutan a developmental success story, with decreasing levels of extreme poverty and improvements in gender equality, as well as a stable political and economic environment. Now, in the news, in media, in movies, everyone loves a success story. So here it's a story. What kind of story? A success story. So said a different way, it'd be a story of success, but it's more common to use success as the adjective to describe the story. But what type of success story? A developmental success story. So how Bhutan is developing as a country. So they are successful in their development. So that's a success story. And then these are the examples of the success. So it shows why it's a developmental success story. To give an example, you could say, after years of hard work, Ellie's Bakery became a real success story. So a success story. When people talk about success of a regular person who started a business, they instantly think of Ali and his bakery. Now, because this is a noun, a story, a success story, you use real as the intensifier, a real success story. Now, you could simply say Ellie's Bakery is a success. You can absolutely say that. It's just very common to use a success story. And again, media, news, movies, they love success stories. Now, because it's a success story, you might ask yourself, what sets Ellie's Bakery apart? Now, because I didn't identify the competitors, I didn't use that additional preposition. What was the additional preposition? From other bakeries in this case, because the bakeries are the competitors. You could also say from other businesses. You could say that as well. What sets Ellie's Bakery apart? That's a great question to ponder. And that's the end of the article. So I will read the article from start to finish, and you can focus on my pronunciation. The country that measures happiness. On the eastern edge of the Himalayas, nestled between India and Tibet, lies the tiny nation of Bhutan. Fiercely proud and protective of its traditions, Bhutan has been closed to outside influences for centuries. The nation has decided to take a unique approach to westernization, creating a concept known as the Gross National Happiness Index. Don't be fooled by the name. This is not just a measure of how much people smile and laugh. It's a holistic approach to sustainable development that gives as much weight to human flourishing as it does wealth. The Center for Bhutan and GNH Studies is responsible for administering the Gross National Happiness Surveys. They measure 9 key areas of happiness every 5 years: psychological well-being, health, education, good governance, ecology, time use, community vitality, culture, and living standards. According to officials, if a government policy doesn't result in the well-being of Bhutanese, that policy will never be approved in the country. But Bhutan is not the happiest country in the world. It actually ranks 95th out of 156 countries in the World Happiness Report. Much of that has to do with the nation's poverty and the challenges of bringing economic and social equity to a predominantly agricultural society. What sets Bhutan apart from other countries is that their vision is to value well-being and community metrics as highly as economic metrics. The World Bank calls Bhutan a developmental success story with decreasing levels of extreme poverty and improvements in gender equality, as well as a stable political and economic environment.
Now, I'm going to challenge you. Now you'll test your listening skills, but not of classroom English, of real English. You'll listen to natives telling jokes to each other. This is level super advanced.
First, you'll watch the clip of the joke without subtitles. Then you'll watch the clip with subtitles. And finally, we'll review the joke together. Here's the first joke.
What did the fried rice say to the shrimp?
Fry your rice.
Don't walk away from me. What did the fried rice say to the shrimp?
Fry your rice.
Don't walk away from me.
So, did you laugh? Make sure you keep track of your laugh score as we go through the jokes. Now, what did the fried rice say to the shrimp? Don't walk away from me. So, you cook fried rice with a wok, right? Now, the pronunciation of wok and walk are the same. So when I said them, it was the exact same word. Different spelling, same pronunciation, different meaning. So you could say, after we bought the wok, we went for a walk in the park. So this is only funny because those two words share the same pronunciation but different meanings. And that's why you have a high level of fluency if you understand these nuances. Joke number 2, here we go.
Did you hear Steve Harvey and his wife got into a fight?
That's not real, is it?
Yeah, it was a family feud. Did you hear Steve Harvey and his wife got into a fight?
That's not real, is it?
Yeah, it was a family feud.
So did you laugh? I like this joke because I grew up watching the show Family Feud. So to understand this joke, you need to understand the cultural reference. Did you hear that Steve Harvey, who is the host of a very popular TV show called Family Feud? So did you hear that Steve Harvey and his wife got into a fight? Now, you also have to know that a feud is a prolonged fight or conflict, and it can be within a family, like in this case, but it doesn't have to be. It can be within a business or within a neighborhood. So in this case, a family feud is used in 2 different ways. It's the name of the TV show, but the word feud also means a prolonged conflict or fight. So a classic example of a feud is Romeo and Juliet.
Romeo and Juliet's tragic ending was the result of the feud between their families. So you could say because of their family feud. Now let's practice that pronunciation. Feud, 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 feud. Joke number 3.
Why couldn't the computer dance? He had no algorithm. Why couldn't the computer dance? He had no algorithm.
Did you get this one? Maybe this was a little easier to understand because the concept of algorithm is very well known. But did you notice the spelling was of the word rhythm? Rhythm. Now this is funny because having rhythm is key, is extremely important to dancing well. You can't dance well without rhythm. Now rhythm, it's the ability to move your body in sync with the music. So your body movements match the music. Now, algorithm, spelled differently again, but same pronunciation, and of course an algorithm represents computer instructions. Now let's just practice that pronunciation as well. Rhythm, rhythm. Our next joke.
How does a pilot take his sandwich? Plane. How does a pilot take his sandwich? Plane.
So did you laugh? Did you notice that spelling of the word plane? They spelled it as what a pilot flies, which is a plane. So of course a pilot flies a plane, and the word plane and plane again have the same pronunciation. Now in this case, a plain sandwich would mean a sandwich without any additional toppings or sauce. It isn't very common to ask for a plain sandwich, to be honest, but it is very common to ask for a plain hamburger, which would mean just the bun and meat. So no ketchup, no cheese, no tomatoes, just the bun and meat. That would be a plain hamburger. Or a plain pizza, which kids normally order, crust, sauce, and cheese, the core ingredients, nothing else. And noticed in the joke, they used the verb take because that's how we ask someone, how do you take your coffee or how do you take your tea, to ask, how do you want it prepared? So to answer, you would say, I take it, my coffee or tea, with milk and sugar. Or you can say, I take it black, which means plain. In this case, just coffee. I take it black. Joke number 5, I love this one. Let's watch it.
Hey son, did you hear the rumor about butter? Well, I'm not gonna spread it. Hey son, did you hear the rumor about butter? Well, I'm not gonna spread it.
So did you laugh? I hope you laughed. This is very funny because you spread butter on your toast, and that means to apply or distribute evenly. So that's the verb you use. But you also spread a rumor, which means to share or circulate that rumor. And a rumor is information or a story that may not be true or verified. For example, I heard they're getting divorced, but it could just be a rumor. So someone told you that, but you are not 100% sure if it's true. It's a rumor. And you shouldn't spread rumors around the office. Maybe that's what your coworker tells you. So what's your last score so far? Joke number 6, here we go.
Dad, did you get a haircut?
Oh, no, I got them all cut.
Dad, did you get a haircut?
Oh, no, I got them all cut.
I really loved this joke. I probably laughed the most with this one. A haircut is the act of getting your hair cut. So the noun is a haircut. But if you say a hair, a hair, that's the noun. This is a hair, and then cut is the verb. So you could say a hair and then the verb cut. Because remember, cut is an irregular verb. So all conjugations are cut, cut, cut. And then remember, I said a hair. Well, that represents, I don't know if you can see it, but one hair. So in the joke, did you get a hair, one single hair, cut? And then he replied back and said, no, I got all my hairs cut. This was very funny. Now, just keep in mind that hair is a collective noun. So you would say, ooh, there's some hair in my food. So notice hair is singular. You would not say there are 2 hairs in my food. You could say, ooh, there are 2 strands of hair in my food, but that's not very common. It would be more common to just say, ooh, there's hair in my food, to use the collective. Joke 7, here we go.
What do you call a guy that keeps my daughter out late on prom night?
What?
An ambulance! What do you call a guy that keeps my daughter out late on prom night?
What?
An ambulance!
Did you laugh? This is funny because you're expecting the answer to be a specific name, right? Because you call someone a name. But you can also call someone an ambulance if they're hurt. So in this case, call to request an ambulance. Now this is also funny because of the cultural context. Dads are protective of their young daughters overall, but especially on prom night, because in North America, prom night is often the time when young couples take their relationship to the next level, if you know what I mean.
On prom night, we conceived Lacey.
Joke number 8, here we go.
Why are women in such great shape? Because they run the world. Boom. You didn't even think about that. Your mind was in the gutter, right? Why are women in such great shape? Because they run the world. Boom. You didn't even think about that. Your mind was in the gutter, right?
You get this one, right? This is a cultural reference because Beyonce famously sang, "Who run the world? Girls." Now, yes, I know grammatically it should be runs. Beyonce knows that as well. Everyone knows that. But that's not the famous lyric. The famous lyric is run. Now, to be in great shape, this means you're very healthy and fit, but you can use any adjective. You can say, I'm in terrible shape, which means you're not healthy or fit. You can also say, I need to get in shape, which means I need to become healthy and fit. And of course, people who run as a form of exercise are healthy and fit, so they are in great shape. And then in Beyonce's song, run has a different meaning. It means to control, to be in charge of, to manage. For example, Claire runs our marketing strategy. She controls it. She's in charge of it. Joke number 9, can you laugh? Let's find out.
I took a quiz on Facebook called, What's Your Spirit Animal? I got extinct. I took a quiz on Facebook called, What's Your Spirit Animal? I got extinct.
I thought this was pretty funny because he's making fun of the fact that he's old. He's so old that his spirit animal is extinct, which of course means no longer living. And this is of course funny as well because it's not the answer the audience expected. They expected him to name a specific animal like a wolf or a bear or a penguin. Now notice here, I got extinct. In this case, got, the verb get in the past simple, is used to mean I received extinct. Get is used in many different ways. For example, which shirt did you get? Which shirt did you buy? Oh, I bought the blue one. Now you can also say, I received 9 out of 10 on the quiz. So you can share what you got on this laugh quiz at the end of the lesson. Joke number 10.
So my wife and I, we recently celebrated our 29th wedding anniversary. Oh, thanks. Thanks very much. Thank you. And I'm happily married. I know that I'm lucky because 50% of married people say they're unhappily married. This is according to a poll I took earlier today at my house. So my wife and I, we recently celebrated our 29th wedding anniversary. Oh, thanks. Thanks very much. Thank you. And I'm happily married. I know that I'm lucky because 50% of married people say they're unhappily married. This is according to a poll I took earlier today at my house.
I found this really funny. I don't know about you. And it was the build-up, the context that he gave. Now, if 50% of the people in his house are unhappily married, and he's happily married, remember he said that, well, that means his wife is unhappily married. Now, a poll, this is a survey. It's a questionnaire to get people's opinions. And notice that verb, you take a poll, which means to conduct a poll. So, how many times did you laugh? I have a bonus joke for you, and this is an English language and English teacher joke. I'll say it twice, first without subtitles, and then you can see the subtitles. Why did the comma break up with the sentence? It needed some space. I'll say it again. Why did the comma break up with the sentence? It needed some space. So did you laugh? My husband did not laugh at this joke, but obviously he is fluent. So the role of a comma in a sentence is to create space, to create a pause between your ideas. In my opinion, it's a good idea. So there, in my opinion, comma, you take a pause, you create space. But I need space is a common reason provided for a breakup. And in this case, space represents personal time, time alone to think and reflect on life. You also need to understand what it means to break up with someone. This means to end a romantic relationship. So maybe your friend says, "Are you and John coming to the party?" And you say, "Actually, we broke up. We ended our romantic relationship." You could say, "I broke up with John. I ended it." Or John broke up with me. John ended it. Now, the friend could say, "Why did you break up?" And you can say, "I don't know. He said he needed some space, some time alone away from me." How rude is that? So how many times did you laugh out of 11? Share your laugh score in the comments. And now that you understand the jokes, let's listen to them all again so you can keep laughing and also share these jokes with your friends as well.
What did the fried rice say to the shrimp?
Fry your rice.
Don't walk away from me.
Did you hear Steve Harvey and his wife got into a fight?
That's not real, is it?
Yeah. It was a family feud.
Why couldn't the computer dance? He had no algorithm.
How does a pilot take his sandwich? Plain.
Hey, son, did you hear the rumor about butter? Well, I'm not going to spread it.
Dad, did you get a haircut?
Oh, no, I got them all cut.
What do you call a guy that keeps my daughter out late on prom night?
What?
An ambulance! Why are women in such great shape? Because they run the world.
Boom.
You didn't even think about that. Your mind was in the gutter, right?
I took a quiz on Facebook called "What's Your Spirit Animal?" I got extinct.
So my wife and I, we recently celebrated our 29th wedding anniversary. Oh, thanks. Thanks very much. Thank you. And I'm happily married. I know that I'm lucky because 50% of married people say they're unhappily married. This is according to a poll I took earlier today at my house.
Why did the comma break up with the sentence? It needed some space. Do you want me to make another lesson like this? If you do, put a laugh emoji in the comments. And of course, make sure you like this lesson, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. And you can get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can click here to download it or look for the link in the description. And here's another lesson I know you'll love. Watch it now.